Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Ghoul. We are doing all things horror today. And not just regular horror, we're doing 2022 horror because this has been an incredible year of horror. And we're going to talk about that right now with our special guest from the Fantasmagorium show. We have Kat here. Kat, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. Perfect timing. I was literally just doing the intro. So good to have you. And as you and I spoke offline yesterday, we're going to talk about the landscape of horror from 2022. Most good, maybe a couple, not so much. But then, we'll break down some of the the recent Halloween trilogy. But so what have it like overall? What have you been happy with 2022 as far as horror cinema has gone?
I haven't really seen too much, and it's like, I mean, there were actually maybe one that I saw that was good. I missed the two really good ones that everybody was raving about this year because they left theaters so quickly in my area. But that being
I'm guessing you're talking about X and Pearl because your answer would have been drastically different had you seen those movies. What was your high point as far as what you saw movie? I mean, we'll get into the movie specifically. What was your high point? And then obviously we'll get into the low points, but
probably the Black Phone as far as high point. I thought it was a pretty intelligent expansion of the source material, considering it was only a 20-page short story. I still think the third act needed a rewrite, but I love the atmosphere of it. It feels like a throwback to old school horror. Ethan Hawke's performance is just fantastic, and it's just very multi-layered story, but admittedly it has too nice of a ending with ending everything on a little bow. I thought it was still the creepy vibes in there with the tension suspense. It's a very good movie.
yeah, they captured the 70s really well too. There was moments in that movie where the soundtrack was playing and I'm like, God, this is almost like Dazed and Confused if it was a horror movie because well, I mean they go to the arcade and there's similar songs, playing and stuff like that in the background.
Right.
So they captured it really well in a subtle way, which to me is the best way to capture an era instead of trying to shove it down your throat. Like, hey, it's the 70s. Look at this. Look at this. That was just kind of the backdrop because it made more sense. You couldn't really have this plot in a 2022 world,
right.
You just couldn't. So I agree with you. I thought the Black Phone was fantastic. Most of it was for performances for me. Like the kids, it was just a showcase for the brother and sister to be so amazing. And even the other kids, I guess I won't spoil it, but some of the friends, some of the people that he talks to on the Black Phone, will say, were really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was good. It was good for that way. It was like a drama, but
right. I get what you mean too, that it does feel like a movie that wouldn't happen today. People are so much more conscious about those types of things, and we live in like a surveillance state. And so
yeah, dude, there is no kid that is going to be amused by a white man showing up with a van full of balloons. He's gonna fucking run before that guy even gets out of the car.
Yeah, and he's gonna stick out like a sore thumb with that weird outfit and van. Like how creepy and like bizarre that he is. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that with the situation going on with the father at home and the fact that the cops even show up at the house at one point, that it's like, I don't know if he'd be, flying under the radar as much today as it like you said, it contributes to that very 70s vibe to it. And I felt like the movie could have kept going on even longer. Like milk the investigation, everything for what it's worth, because it was a very moody film. I liked it.
It wasn't one of those like paranoia movies. It was an intimate intensity, which is what I like. It's very claustrophobic. Sometimes those are the best ones where it's like, it's great to have like a horror movie where there's a gigantic mansion and it's very scary and there's a million different directions you can go, but it's also very scary when you're just in a room. And
right.
If and Derrickson directed it so well where it's like, there's nowhere really to go, but for some reason he makes it seem like there could be somebody else in there at any waking moment. But you can see all four corners of the room, for the most part. I'm really glad he made this movie instead of Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But there's some other ones too. I mean, I won't get into X or Pearl too much because you haven't seen them, but they're two of my favorite movies of the year. Not just horror movies, they're two of the best movies made this year. They're just phenomenal in very different ways, and maybe we'll get into them more at the end of the year, as they will probably be in my top 10. So let's pivot to Barbarian, because I know we both saw that one.
Right. I loved the first 2/3 of the movie. It was very unsettling, and it's like, I like that I didn't really know where it was going. It's like, okay, you both end up at this Airbnb, you're both kind of iffy with each other, and I'm like, is this the guy we're supposed to be worrying about, or is it the girl? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, they did a great job of making you think, is he a weirdo? Like, really good job with the script.
Right. And that's like one of those things where it's like, oh, we'll cast Bill Skarsgård for this, because given other past roles he's played, people would be like, oh, they're gonna think it's probably gonna be him. That's like a fourth wall breaking thing that adds another layer to that, which really works. But then when you have it suddenly cut away to the Justin Long character, and it's like, what's this? It's like, this is a whole different movie. Like, what's going on?
A completely different movie at that point. Yeah,
a completely different movie. It adds some needed levity, and then when he gets there, and it's like, oh, okay, so now you're involved in this situation. And even the first glimpses of what's in the basement and things going on there and what's at the house is kind of really creepy and scary. And I liked not knowing exactly what it was, but I admittedly didn't care for the third act as much. It feels like, I mean, a little contrived with the story, and it just feels like they've gone down that well of that type of horror story before, and too often, that it just kind of, I was like, this is becoming a bit weird. It kind of took me out of it a bit. But I love the first 2/3 of that film.
Well, let me tell you my experience with this movie, Kat, because this was the first movie in distant memory that the only thing I saw about this movie was a poster. I never saw a trailer. I never heard anybody talk about it. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't even look it up. I swear to God, I never do this, but I just did it with that movie. I never looked up anything about it. Never saw a trailer. I had no idea what this movie was about, except it was called Barbarian and it was making money and people were saying it was good. So me and Joanne from the show and Josh, we went and saw it, and we all went into it pretty cold. I think Josh had seen the trailer, but that was it. All I'd seen was a poster, which is ambiguous, gives you nothing. So I had zero knowledge of what was happening. I had no idea. I mean, I'm going to say that 100 times. I had no idea what this movie was about. Yeah. I couldn't have asked for anything better as far as just being so bonkers and having basically 3 acts that were all completely separate movies, because I didn't know what the movie was to begin with.
Right.
So to me, it was one of the most fun, pleasurable viewing experiences I had all year, just because I had zero expectations. I had no idea what it was about. So it was just taking me on the ride. And because of that, like, especially like you said, when it cuts to the Justin Long character and he's like driving through the Hollywood Hills, you're like, what the fuck is going on now? I had no idea what was going on. And it leads me to a place where I agree with you. I thought the third act was probably the weakest, though I still really enjoyed it. There's some goofy imagery. There's a certain someone that jumps off a certain something where I heard the theater laughing and I was laughing as well. I admire the shit out of this movie because when they go down to that basement, and everybody's stupid in horror movies, they all do stupid shit. That's otherwise you wouldn't really have a horror movie, Right. So they do dumb stuff where they get stuck in locations and stuff. But man, the buildup and the score and just the really proximity based like sound design of when they go down to the basement and then they go through another door and another door. I just thought that was some of the best horror filmmaking of the year for sure. Just when you don't know what's coming,
right.
Obviously when you find out what's coming, it breaks it a little bit, but man, just the build up to the POVs of people going down the stairs and going through doors and
well, yeah, they just keep drawing it out like a tightrope, just pulling you in bit by bit, and it's like the tension's not breaking, and it's going and going and going, and it's like, is it gonna break?
Yeah, and you and I, we didn't know what was coming. We had no,
right.
like again, I had no idea. To me, I still don't even know why it's titled what it's titled. Like, do you have any theories on that? Like, is it because of the main, let's say, protagonist? I guess. I don't know.
I guess if we're avoiding spoilers, then it would be because of what one of the supporting characters was doing to instigate this whole thing, which that flashback sequence was so good,
It
so
was.
well shot and so creepy, and it felt like a throwback to something more like from the 50s, even though it was supposed to be like the 80s. Okay, I guess that guy's the barbarian for what he's doing, and I mean they don't spell it out 100%, but you get the idea. Yeah, it was just the imagery is so strong in this, especially when they're going again through the tunnels. But the build-up and the payoff, I mean, or the build-up of all the different characters and how it starts the movie over again, it's like, where are we going with this? And they've already earned enough goodwill with people going all the way down into the basement that you tolerate them going to, Malibu just to hang out with Justin Long. What seems like a really petty thing by comparison. It's like, what the hell is this? But in a good way. And I guess that's why when you get to the revelations of what's going on, that I was kind of like, oh, because I was with you. I love not knowing what this movie was about, not having a clue where it was going, starting out with something that seems kind of relatable, that, oh, you end up with an Airbnb with somebody else double booked. This is kind of weird. And where does it go from there? And yet it just gets weirder and weirder as it goes on. I just wish that they would have been able to maintain that unpredictable strain that they were going on, because once they get to the third act of telling what's going on, it becomes a bit too conventional to me, in terms of like conventional B monster movie type thing at that point. And I was like, I was kind of checked out by then. But that first two acts, man, that's really, really well done.
Well, that's the problem with all these kind of movies, isn't it? Where it's like the buildup is normally always going to be disappointed when you're waiting to see what's behind the door. They can pull it off to a certain extent, but like with this one, there's moments where you're like, okay, so this girl meets this guy, and like they're double booked. He starts out very reserved, and then he gets a little animated, and then they become friends sort of overnight. And then, she gets creeped out during the night. But to me, it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, if you're going on a job interview and then after the interview, you're supposed to go home, why are you going back to the Airbnb? I never understood that part. But my point is like, you have all these things that are leading up to something. To me, the more enjoyable stuff is the leading up to something. Because when you finally get your reveal, you're like, okay. It still had intense moments. Fuck, for sure. I still thought the movie was great, but there's so much. Like that's what I love about movies like Session 9. I know I talk about Session 9 all the time, but it's because the buildup is the whole movie. Like it's the whole movie, and you can almost argue that there is no closure to it. It's all buildup,
Well, even when the reveal comes in Barbarian, the intensity's still there for sure. At least up until they leave the basement. But that's just kind of what that movie was built on, like tension and suspense, something that you don't get in a lot of horror films anymore, unfortunately. I also thought it was pretty innovative how they kept you just kind of on your feet, wondering what was going to happen for as long as they did.
And for that, again, Barbarian's up there with like, I'm plastering all these great horror movies on my 2022 wall, and I think Barbarian's one of them, and a lot of it had to do with the experiment I did of just not wanting to know anything about it. This is that kind of movie, Kat, where you're like, I am so glad I didn't even watch a trailer, because I just had no idea where it was going. And I'm guessing even if you did watch a trailer, you would probably be thrown off either way. So for me, it was kind of like a win-win. It's like, I didn't want to know anything about it, and it just went in 3 different directions. It went off the rails. Like, it was insane. I found it fun. And I love, I think the guy's name, Richard Brake.
Yes.
Yeah. Richard Brake, like, who played like Joe Chill in Batman Begins. Like, he's got a creepy look to him. He had a great performance. Has what I'm guessing you're saying, your theory, which I will go with, because I have not figured out who the Barbarian is. So I guess he would be the Barbarian.
Yeah, because of what he was doing and everything. I mean,
yeah, and it has a little bit of like, what's that movie called? Don't Breathe, because it takes place like the 8 Mile, where like all the houses are abandoned and there's no one around, so you can kind of get away with weird shit.
At least I figured out. I assume that's why the movie's called Barbarian, is what this guy's ultimately plan is, and what is the end result of what's in the basement. Even though they do keep it at times slightly ambiguous, but it was just, that was very well done.
Yeah, definitely. Just how, I mean, there's obvious plot holes as to like how he was able to maintain that place, and how it became a B&B, and like Justin Long's character had no idea what was going on. I mean, that made sense because he's kind of like a coke sniffing Hollywood douchebag or whatever.
Right.
And I also thought that was a very interesting angle too, for Justin Long to kind of come in, and you immediately get this story about him, and you don't really know what to think. I mean, this is kind of minor spoilers, but you don't know what to think of his character. And by the way, I thought Justin Long was awesome in this movie. He was so
Yeah.
good, because he's just like a sniffling weasel, or is he a solid guy? There's moments where they make you think that, oh, he's going to be the unsung hero, and then there's moments where you're like, oh no, he's a piece of shit. Like,
Exactly.
that's a great character for a horror movie, where he's not a stereotype. You don't know what direction he's going. Fun movie. I liked Barbarian a lot. I had a blast. I kind of wish it came out in October, but that's fine. It came out in September. Wow, wait, I think even Smile came out the last week of September.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I saw Smile, and you saw Smile. We didn't see Smile together. We might have been smiling. I didn't find Smile as good as its box office. I'm happy it's making money. Anytime a horror movie that's not terrible is making money, I'm happy. It's not bad. It's just, I don't think it's as good as, like, people are kind of like blowing this movie, and I'm just like, eh.
Yeah, it's, it takes the whole chain letter type horror movie like The Ring or It Follows, but
it's really trying to copy It Follows. Yeah.
And it's not, except it's not as well
Good.
done. It's not as well thought out of a concept, and it's like, I felt it was way too long for what it is. It's built on tension and jump scares, but because you can see every jump scare coming a mile away, not a single one of them worked for me. I just was flat out bored through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's well shot. The lead actress.
I thought the acting was good. The lead actress was great.
Yeah, but even scenes at like the birthday party, I knew it was going to happen before she even knocked on the door. It's like, okay, so it's just kind of counting time for that to happen, and then what? And I thought it would have been maybe more interesting if it focused just on, you see a bit of her breakdown with the family dynamic and how that's starting to fall apart around her. And at one point, her husband just kind of disappears from the movie.
Well, that guy, you could tell. Yeah. Well, he was her fiance or whatever. That's A-Train from fucking The Boys.
He just kind of disappears from the movie for a while. The whole thing felt very been there, done that, and just boring. And I didn't like the overabundance of CGI in the climax.
Well, and there wasn't enough of like the great. I mean, It Follows was my favorite movie of 2015. I think it's a masterpiece, and I've done several videos on it. I may be on an island on my own for that, but it hit me in a certain way where, like, I took that movie home with me, and like I couldn't sleep, and it entered my dreams, and it was one of those kind of movies where it was so effective to me, from the color and the camera work and like the performances, and just keeping the theme so condensed to this like area, where like it's helplessness, there's nowhere to go. Like, this movie kind of tries to take that, but it's more expansive, where it's like, oh, we have to go here, and we have to do this, and we have to talk to this person, we have to do the investigation. They do that in It Follows, but it's all from unreliable narrators, which is what makes it so much more frightening. Is like, no one really knows what this is. And Smile tries to do that, but the problem is it wants to have like a showdown ending with like your CGI and stuff like that. And I love that It Follows never went that direction.
I love the first 30 or 45 minutes or however long it is. It's been a while since I've seen that one, because it was such a great just tension. That opening, that 40-minute opening or whatever, is just amazing. And then after that, it's like it segues into all these supporting, kind of like, segues into all these supporting characters and some of the slasher type stuff that happens, even though it's not a slasher movie. Sort of like the original Scream. It's like the first scene is a perfect short film, and that's all you need. But then we got to introduce all these other characters and tell a story for the next hour and a half.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I know.
It's like, it's kind of like because with It Follows, everybody gets the concept and what it is that they're talking about, and it works so well. Whereas in Smile, in a way, they tell you everything what it is from the beginning. It wasn't really a surprise to learn throughout. Like, she does her own pseudo investigation to try and figure out what's going on. And it's like, I kind of already figured that out long before then. It's not really a surprise. And it just sort of, it just kind of goes on. And I was just kind of.
But I will say that the opening scene of Smile is very effective. You're introduced to this doctor, and then it's just like, hey, it's a normal day at the office. And then, the girl comes in and she's in the corner. I mean, obviously, something's going to happen. But to me, that was the most intense scene in the movie for sure. Just like It Follows, where the guy has sex with her in the car, and then she wakes up and she's tied to a wheelchair. You're like, what the fuck is going on? This Smile does it in the very first scene, where you're kind of you're thrusted into the situation, and there's this girl giving a great performance also, and then I mean, the problem with this movie for me is there wasn't enough people doing the smiles. Like, it follows actually, like, it actually like earns all of its scares by actually showing you somebody, like, everywhere she goes another person's following her, and the camera lingers on that smile. Like, it introduces the premise, but aside from the opening where the girl's got that really creepy smile and then she cuts her throat, there's not a lot of like people following her smiling. And I think that was the problem. It's
I
like,
didn't find the smile to be frightening either. It's like,
well,
okay.
I thought the first girl was, but then after that, no one really had the smile. Well, you go.
Yeah, I just didn't find it scary at all. It's like, okay, I get it. She's cursed with this thing, and now she has to figure out how to get rid of it. And we get it. She's gonna seem crazy. Her family's gonna fall apart. All this kind of stuff. And it's like the whole film felt telegraphed for me, and the fact that it wasn't scary.
It was totally telegraphed. Well,
right, and the fact that it wasn't scary either. I thought that, okay, then they gotta have some type of unique ending with this, because obviously the screenwriter knows how telegraphed and predictable this is. There's got to be something like a shocker ending to justify in my mind why people are raving about this movie as much as they are. And then it just didn't. The ending is like you see it coming a mile away, and it's like,
Well, I think it threw me a little curveball when you think that she's defeated the thing, and then
Right.
like, she goes back to the ex-boyfriends, and then she ends up back there, and like, I'm like, okay, it ends on a dour note. That's cool.
Now, granted, if people out there watch it haven't seen the other films that it's sort of copying in a way, then maybe it'll work better for them. But I didn't feel much from it. I probably won't watch it again.
Yeah, I won't watch it again. But see, this movie has shortcomings, which are what keep me from thinking. Because I'm like you, I didn't find it scary. I live alone, and my house during the month of Halloween is filled with skeletons hanging on the wall. Like, when I come home at night, I bump into shit that I've hung up, like skulls and chains and stuff. And I went and saw that movie with a couple of people, and I came home. My house was dark, and I just never got scared. Where, like I said, It Follows kind of fucked me up. And that's fine if it didn't do that for other people. That's the beautiful subjective nature of film, is like, it hits people in different ways. You never really know what's going on. And I think Smile does that. It just does it boring, and it's not scary, I guess. But what we're really here to talk about is the Halloween. Well, what do we even call it, Kat? What trilogy do we call it? The 2018 trilogy? Was it?
I just call it the reboot trilogy.
The worst trilogy?
No, I call it the reboot trilogy.
Okay, the reboot trilogy. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the reboot trilogy, from the 2018 movie to this movie that just came out the other day. I'll let you start because I don't even know where.
All right. So the 2018 film and the 2021 film, Halloween and Halloween Kills. First of all, I don't like the trend of naming sequel movies the same name as the original. It's like, no. But both those films are overstuffed with plot and characters. And there's so many character twists and character relationships and subplots that go nowhere by virtue of the fact that they're only there to supply the body count, because God forbid Michael doesn't kill somebody every 2 minutes. And that's not really what Michael Myers is. They turned him into Jason Voorhees in the first two movies, and it's like there's no tension or suspense or scares in there. Now, the first movie, it had some moments that were good, like as bizarre as the opening scene at the mental hospital is, it kind of works. And you had this, like, the proximity light backyard sequence was all right, but it kind of lasts too short. And they had one scene, which I'm still not even sure why the scene's in the movie, where Michael just randomly goes to some house where this girl and her boyfriend are babysitting. The boy says he hears something, he goes upstairs, but the camera follows the boyfriend outside, and he sees something. We don't see what it is, but he walks off screen, and the camera lingers on the sheets, billowing in the wind. And I'm thinking, okay, a movie's going to start picking up now and start resembling the original movie, which is built on tension and suspense. And then it kind of does that for a bit. It goes back to the bedroom. The girl's showing the kid that there's no monsters in here. Then it cuts back to the garage, and we see that the guy was looking at a motorcycle. I'm like, okay, here we go. And then they decide to ruin it with a joke when the shape jumps out of the closet, when the kid's like, holy shit. And I'm like, and the whole movie kind of plays like that. It's a wall-to-wall carnage. Just very little do they use the Halloween score either, even though John Carpenter and Cody Carpenter came back to score these films. And the climax is largely devoid of music. And you have like that plot twist with the psychiatrist and who broke Michael out, and it's like, okay, this guy's really crazy. But then we got to cut away for comic relief with these two cops when you're building your tension going into the climax. Like, what are you doing? And yet it's still overstuffed with plot, because they took an interesting homage to H2O, where Laurie was PTSD, kind of drinking too much. She faked her death, changed her name. She's in hiding, and her whole character arc there is learning to rise up and, take back what's hers. Whereas in this movie, she's like a survivalist prepper type person who's alienated her family, and there's enough stuff there that you can mine to keep her and her immediate family as the only characters to focus on in the movie. There was no reason for all this other stuff, but at least the first one in this reboot trilogy still felt like it was trying to be a Halloween movie. Whereas Halloween Kills, they introduce a bunch of older characters from the original film, like Lonnie and Tommy and Lindsay and Sheriff Brackett and Marion Chambers, and they do nothing. They bring them back to kill them, basically. And the whole logic that, we need to stop Michael and they have to have an angry mob. It's like, well, in the new continuity, he's been in prison for 40 years. And inexplicably, nobody in the film is aware of the fact that he's been on a rampage all night long already. So the logic here doesn't really hold. But I think they could have mined enough if they just focused, on Lonnie, Tommy, Lindsay, and Marion. You don't need, again, this massive ensemble of victims that have been set up and Michael just being there to kill everybody for no reason. Like in the original film, Michael's not just a stalker, but he's a voyeur, and he's very much a character in the film. You repeatedly cut back to him and what he's doing and going on the journey with him. In these movies, he's like a cipher that they return to just when they need him to kill somebody, and then it goes back to this overly large ensemble. And at the same time, Kills repeats the mistake that everybody agreed was a mistake in Halloween 2, which is having so many scenes of Laurie just sitting in the hospital doing nothing. So it's like Kills, even the ending is ambiguous, because it seems like she's going to walk out of the hospital with a knife, she's going to go confront Michael, but then no, we're going to do a 4-year time jump before the third one. So it's like, why did the second movie even exist? I don't know. And we get to the third one, and there's so little story to tell that on the one hand, they have a smaller body count, which is nice. They actually get you to care about this new protagonist they've come up with, but it's like, this is a third movie. You shouldn't be introducing a new protagonist to talk about a parallel conversation about trauma and grief. It's like, no, you have Laurie there, you have her granddaughter, you have Frank, who, why has she not been, talking to him at all for the last 4 years? What's that about? Where's Michael been this whole time? Why is he teleporting his powers into this kid and teaming up with him? It's like, it's so mind-numbingly bad, yet I could say that I liked all the Laurie scenes in the movie. But none of these three films use Laurie as the main character at all. Like, she was the main character in H2O. Like, even though you had Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams and Adam Hand-Bird and the other people, Jodie Lynn O'Keefe and all them, they were supporting characters. In this movie, it's the other way around. Laurie seems almost like the supporting character, or the constant in the three films.
Don't forget LL Cool J.
Yeah, LL Cool J was cool in that movie too. And that film also had tension and suspense. It felt eerie, and it's like, again, you're not really sure where the shape is, what's going on.
It was in a prep school, which is so cool. Like, yeah.
Right. And whereas in these three movies, it's like Jason Voorhees. Let's see how we get up the body count. Let's not explore any of the new ideas we pose, like the weird psychiatrist who's got this obsession with Michael, or Laurie being, completely destroyed. And it's like, it's funny because Jamie gave an interview where she said she views that Laurie, after the events of Halloween 1978, went right back to school on November 2nd, was ostracized, didn't get any counseling, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, if that's true, and that's why she's ended up as this survivalist prepper type person, then it sounds like the community didn't care. So the notion that the community is so traumatized that they want to form an angry mob makes even less sense now. So it's like, it would have made more sense if they combined the second and third movie into just one movie, set it a few years later, because then you would at least have all the carnage from the 2018 movie as some type of justification for people to be kind of fed up with it. Or introduce Lonnie, Tommy, and Lindsay in the first one, along with Sheriff Brackett. Have established what their relationship is like with Laurie. Like in Kills, I could not understand for the life of me why Brackett and Laurie didn't have a scene together, because Annie was like Laurie's best friend, and if Jamie feels that Laurie was ostracized, they're like, well, what happened to Sheriff Brackett? Like, did she not have a relationship with him after that? Did they not talk? Like, why? Like, you brought this guy back, a beloved ambassador for the Halloween franchise as a whole, just so you can have him help incite the mob and just kill him in this really tasteless climax. And it's just, I don't get. It's like, did Danny McBride and David Gordon Green not see the original film? Because it's not, the original doesn't have a high body count. It's not, there's barely any blood in it, but it's built on tension and suspense, and it's visually very dark because there's not very many lights in that film, which is another problem with these three. There's so much light pollution in all the nighttime scenes that it's not really eerie. Like when Laurie goes into the Wallace house at the end of the movie of the original, it's so dark and it's so creepy because they're playing the slower version of the Halloween theme, which, despite that John and Cody scored these three films, or most of them, they barely use their own score. And it's like, or their own original score, which really married these films so well. And it's just,
none of these new three movies, because Halloween 1 and 2 and H2O, even 4, everything, Michael Myers was always in silhouette. They use silhouette, they use like butterfly, right. They use like silhouette lighting. That's why Michael Myers looks so frightening in the first movie. I mean, obviously they branched
even in 4, 5, 6, as much as those ones are all bloody and high body count,
even those ones
have tension and suspense.
No, he's still in silhouette. He's so brightened up in these new ones where he's just, you're always supposed to, in a horror movie with your main antagonist, villain, monster, whatever, you have to change the lighting to showcase that they're there. And they never did that with these new movies. And for me, Kat, the reason is because David Gordon Green doesn't know how to direct a fucking horror movie. That he should have ever directed a horror movie. He never should have.
And I mean, this is going to sound ridiculous, but in Halloween 2018, it was said that Nick Castle had a cameo as the Shape. I didn't know what scene it was going to be, but I could tell because when Laurie first sees him up in the window, it cuts to Sheriff or Deputy Hawkins looking out the window in the adjacent room, and you see Michael just walk by in the hallway behind him. And the way he's walking, I'm like, that's Nick Castle, because Nick had it down, and then Dick Warlock, who played the Shape in Halloween 2, they had it down. None of the other guys did. They were just kind of, stunt guys, just regular guy in a suit, which just kind of dragged down H2O a lot, and drag down these new movies where he doesn't feel like the Shape. He feels more like just Michael Myers, a guy in a suit, and like whatever. It's just not, it wasn't nothing really scary about him anymore.
Right. Yeah, there was people making videos about how he walks in some of those later Halloween movies and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, in these new ones, I couldn't even fucking tell you how he walks or what he does or what his fucking mask looks like, because to me, I never maybe a little bit in the first one when he first breaks out of the mental hospital, maybe he felt like Michael Myers, but to me, the second one, to me, it felt like Jason Voorhees because he was too powerful, too ruthless, killing too many people too fast. And then in this new one, he's just like a cameo in his own movie. I never felt Michael Myers in any of these. I just didn't. I mean, like I said, a few minutes in the 2018 one, I mean, goddamn, at least that one takes place during Halloween when people are trick-or-treating. I know this one, it's not until like, oh, it's on Halloween, it's the same night. It's like, yeah, but it's like midnight now, isn't it? Like, who fucking cares? Like,
yeah, this one doesn't start on Halloween until, I mean, aside from the prologue, it's not until
it never feels like Halloween in this one ever. Right, it's like, never a factor in the movie at all, ever.
Yeah, it's just like, and it's like, if you wanted to tell a story about how this has affected your characters, then don't introduce the Corey character. Focus on Laurie.
Well, don't even get me fucking started on why Laurie and her granddaughter would double down.
Exactly.
And buy a house in the city, in the town that all this shit happened twice to Laurie. Like, it makes no fucking sense. Like,
and the idea that for some reason people think that, oh, this is your fault, you teased him, and that's why. I'm like, what? Where's that coming from? I mean, it'd be one thing if they said, hey, you said, like in the 2018 film, that you prayed for him to escape every night so you can kill him. Well, this is all your fault. I could see her getting ostracized for that reason, which may have been interesting if they'd gone in that angle. But
But
like,
they
why are they
didn't.
spending so
They
much
didn't
time?
though.
Yeah, but why are they spending so much time with this Corey guy instead of with Laurie? It's like you have Laurie, you have Frank Hawkins, you have Allison, but no, we're gonna. Admittedly, they did a good job on character development for Corey until they pissed away all their goodwill with the transference thing. It's like I no.
I talked about how like I think like I don't know what Danny McBride's like credentials are as far as like writing horror. He's great in Eastbound and Down. That's fine. I don't think any of these people that are involved in this production, Cat, like should have touched this with a 50-foot pole. Like, because you were talking about how like there's like things in the 2018 one that are like funny, right? And I remember like there was these weird like riffs of comedy that just came out of nowhere. There was a thing about a sandwich between two cops, and people were like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, okay, well, that's the David Gordon Green. That's like the Judd Apatow shit that he knows. Like he knows those Quibi stuff. So in Halloween Kills, he deletes all of that shit, all of it, and just goes full. And then he got some slack for it. But you had said something that I completely agree with, and I think other people do too, where there just wasn't a story for a third movie. So it was kind of like, and a lot of people have been saying this, Cat. I think you and I even talked about it last night offline, where if they were going to do Halloween Kills, if they have to make a second one, why not just add 30 minutes to it and have this final fight in this movie between Laurie and Michael Myers? And we're going full spoilers. Fuck it. We can't talk about these ones unless we do. Why not just have that be the final thing? Like, they kill Laurie's daughter. Michael Myers kills Laurie's daughter. She picks up the knife. They have their battle and it's over. This movie, to me, this new one, it just seemed like they had no story. So like, fuck, what do we fucking do? Like, do we pull from the well of like, should we have Michael Myers like put his body in other people or put his brain in other people's body? I mean, and thank God they didn't do that, but they might as well have. What's the difference, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like I feel that the 2018 film should have gotten rid of all the ancillary characters, just stick with Laurie's immediate family as well as the granddaughter's boyfriend, and put Lonnie in there along with Tommy, Lindsay.
Well, Tommy, I'm sorry, but Tommy, and this isn't, I'm not being sexist. I think it would have been very interesting if Tommy was the main character of part 3, because they don't specifically show you that he dies.
They do in the extended cut.
Oh, dude, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that, but yeah. It's like Anthony Michael Hall, it was a very divisive performance. I don't think it was his fault. I think it was more about the script.
Right.
He was fine. He was doing something a little strange, he was, but I think he was playing a guy.
I kind of picked it up as a character that.
Yeah, he was being a character who, as a kid, went through what he went through, right?
Yeah, he's still traumatized by it clearly because the weirdness of doing this whole reunion, like we meant, like why does Marion know these people? Why is she there? And we're gonna commemorate his capture after 40 years. I'm like, it seems like you would be on top of it if there was a rampage going on all night long, and yet some reason you don't know about it. And he's sitting there drinking after hearing from the neighbor that there's somebody in my car outside the bar, and he drinks very defiantly as he's getting ready, and he just grabs the baseball bat off the wall.
Well, I don't know.
He's clearly been dealing with stuff for a while and has.
I don't know about you, Kat, but when Kills started and they showed Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace and Marianne whatever in the bar, I thought that the movie was going to take place. Tell me if I'm crazy. This would have been ambitious, but I thought it was like simultaneously happening. You know what I mean? Like, right, I'm like, oh wow, are they really going there? Like,
well, because the two people there, the nurse and the dressed up as the nurse and the doctor, were the parents of the kid in the first movie who was being babysat by the girl and the boyfriend I mentioned.
I know, and it's so fucking tasteless that they killed them, and then in this new one they show him walking by himself. It's like, it's so
but that's the thing. It's like I would have introduced the Tommy, Lonnie, and Lindsay and Marion in the 2018 film. Have them be the only supporting characters. Show them, at the bar or whatever, establish what Laurie's relationship is with them, has been with them over the last 40 years, and that's your victim pool. We don't need all these random people.
Yes, because who cares about who gives a fuck about Laurie's daughter and granddaughter? Like, Michael Myers doesn't know who the fuck they are, and they weren't alive when he did his thing. The movie should have been the second movie should have been fucking Tom. I know Lonnie, you say Lonnie. Lonnie wasn't technically a part of the original. I mean, I guess he was the bully that pushed him over on the pumpkin or whatever.
But right? He also is the one when he ran away and he ran right into Michael's arms. Still have the daughter and the granddaughter there to establish how this is fucked up Laurie's life.
Yeah, but it shouldn't.
So you have Lonnie, Tommy, Lindsay, and Marion, and Sheriff Brackett, the former Sheriff Brackett. You establish what their relationship is with Laurie and has been with Laurie. You see her dysfunctional family and how she's, gets along with the granddaughter, but not with the daughter. And that's your victim pool, because automatically these are people we're going to care about because Laurie cares about them, or because we've established them already in the original film. So you don't have to worry about tons of character development for it, and you could focus on your tension and suspense. Like Michael broke out from the, the bus crash, and because that would be on the news, Tommy would hear about it. And it's not that Michael seeks them out. He would have no reason to seek them out anyway, because he's not related to any of these people. It'd be more like Tommy seeking him out, sort of unwittingly drawing Michael's attention, much like Laurie did in the original by putting the key under the door at the Myers house and singing that song, I wish I had you all alone, just the two of us. It's like, that's what drew him to her the first time. And just, that's your victim pool right there for the 2018 movie. I would kill both her daughter and her son-in-law in the first one. Get rid of Lonnie, and then maybe the boyfriend, and then maybe Marion Chambers, but then save Tommy and Lindsay and Sheriff Brackett and Laurie and the granddaughter for the next one. And the next one would be a couple years later. So you've had time for this carnage to mellow. People are gonna be upset about it. And then deal with the fallout from that if you want for your second movie, for your big showdown with these last people. If you feel the need to split it even into two movies, which technically I don't even feel they needed to do that. It's like, like John Carpenter said when he was writing Halloween 2 back in 1981, I'm remaking the same film, but just not as good, because it's just, there's no story left to tell.
No.
Which is why if they just kept the cast small, followed the KISS rule of screenwriting, keep it simple, stupid, get rid of all the plot twists, all of the ancillary characters or plot device, all this crap, and just focus on the people you care about, and emphasize the stalking and the voyeurism, and make Michael a character. Because like I said, he's not a character in any of these three films, because there's so many other people that the movie wants to focus on that you only cut to Michael when you need him to kill somebody. And that's not the shape. It's like and like in the original, when he has this macabre idea that he's going to steal his sister's headstone and make Halloween decorations out of the people. Like he uses Annie as a substitute Judith in the bed. And that's why Bob and Linda are just shoved into the closets, because he doesn't need them. He's just getting them out of the way. He's, for some reason, recreating this macabre thing with his sister. And then Laurie comes into the house and kind of distracts him again. He's like, oh, that's the person who came to my house. So there's like a method to the madness, and it's also really bizarre. Whereas in these three movies, there's really no logic to what he's doing or why he's doing it. And yeah, there's a couple times where he tries his hand at a decoration, but it's just kind of feels more like they're trying to pay lip service to the idea rather than following it through. And then in Halloween Kills, Lonnie says, oh, he's just on a rampage to get back to his house, which for some reason they decided to turn into the hotbed of comic relief with the two guys, Big John and Little John. I'm like, okay, it'd be funny if this was like a comedy, but this is not what this is. Why are they here? And once again, we're going into the climax and you're setting up these comedic characters and trying to add levity. It's like, no, I can't with this,
Yeah.
Oh God, it's just venting and venting.
Well, and it seems to me like none of them that were writing this or creating this knew what to do with Michael ever. They never knew what to do with him. They didn't even know what to do with any of the story, period. Like you said, he's not a character. Like, to me, I think it should have ended. I think they just should have made the one and just had that have. God, I go back to H2O, but it's like picture perfect. I mean, say what you want about that movie. Maybe it wasn't violent enough. Maybe his mask wasn't good enough. Maybe it wasn't.
Well, I don't think I'm surprised that movie got criticized as much as it did. I'm like, yes, the mask, they had a controversy.
Made a shitload of money.
Yeah, they had the controversy with the mask, which they shouldn't have had.
The mask wasn't great though. It looked a little shitty.
they recycled a bit of Marco Beltrami's score from Scream, which didn't really fit the movie.
But
And
it
then
was the time. It was you know
yeah, but again, it's a different. But it's also not a good excuse for doing it because it's like
no
this is Halloween. This is a completely different type of movie. But
sure,
they also again the stunt guy or whoever they got to play Michael is just like a regular guy moving normally in a suit. He's not.
well, I don't know. I disagree. I think the last 15 minutes of H2O with, I mean, that is your duke out. I mean, fuck, everyone's like, oh, Halloween Ends sucks, but the last 20 minutes saved it. I'm like, why did it save it? That sucked. That fight was garbage. Like,
oh yeah, definitely. The
it
H2O
basically
climax
seemed
is so
like
much
Michael
better.
Myers had a stroke, and like now he's just like barely able to walk, and she takes advantage of him and she stabs him a bunch of times in his hand. It was terrible. Like Laurie closing off the school and yelling his name, Michael, like
That great
motherfucker.
shot too, the
Yeah.
overhang shot where she's got the axe and the silhouette. That was beautiful.
Oh,
And the
and then
updated
the
score.
lighting and the color of when she goes back into the school to face him, like
Yeah.
it was fucking great. And it wasn't just an action scene, it was scary. Like you didn't know where he was coming, but she had no fear because, like you said, she was more, to me, she was, that Laurie Strode was more of a hardened, yeah. I know they established she had kind of a drinking problem, but it didn't seem that serious. I
Right,
mean,
yeah, it wasn't that bad. And
yeah.
but you're right. In that movie also, it's just
The basket case you meet her in Halloween 18 was fucking way worse off.
the weird thing about that also is that in the new continuity, her experience with the shape basically unfolded in real time when she went across the street to the Wallace house.
Yeah.
And so, not that isn't traumatizing, but it's like, really, 40 years later, if she's this much of a badass, I would have thought she would have overcome that more. Whereas if the sequels had still been canon, sure, she's not involved in most of the sequels, but the knowledge that this is still going on, that would really eat away at you. Whereas the fact that she's this much of a basket case, I didn't perceive it as like, if you want to set up her character as weaker, then make her the main character so we can focus on her overcoming that, like they did in H2O. Because it's like, yeah, she faked her death and
her
changed.
a complete narcissist in the 2018 one, where it's like, why did she think any of this had to do with her? Like,
right, because they even
she
go out of
sets
their
up these
way.
trap, like, oh, I'm waiting for Michael to come at me again, and Michael, meanwhile, doesn't even know who the fuck she is. And of course, they fucked that up, later on. Like, but there's good lines in both of those movies. The 18 one and even Kills, which I hate to say is better than this new one, even though that movie was my least favorite movie of the year. But there's lines where I think it was Tommy Doyle. He's just like, or no, I don't think it was Tommy Doyle, but somebody said to Laurie, like, he's not here for you. Like, this isn't about you. And then in the 2018 one, there's a kid who says, like, oh, wow, big deal. Like, so 40 years ago, some guy came and killed 3 people in this town. Like, who gives a shit? Like, and I love.
On the one hand, that's something I want to touch on real quick. So on the one hand, I agree with him in terms of the plot logic. Yes, because like even Jamie says, if she was ostracized and didn't get counseling or anything like that, then they wouldn't care. But at the same time, I feel that when the kid says that, that's almost like the dismissive attitude of modern horror fans against old school movies like that. Like, oh, the body count's small. It wasn't really that big of a deal. Not really, but who cares? It's like, because I just want carnage, and that's what Kills was.
So
like,
you think that was more
carnage.
of a meta?
Yeah, to me, it feels more like a meta diss of the original movie.
See that. I can see that. Yeah.
Because that's kind of what. Because again, like the reason I find, I mean, yes, I saw Halloween twice in the theater this week. I guess you should say for October 2022. But I think the best environment to watch the original movie, the first sequel, and then H2O in, is like upstairs late at night in the pitch dark silence of a den and just watching it in the dark, because the tension and the suspense is still there in all 3 of those movies, and it's so eerie, like you say, even in the climax of H2O, just building up to where she's going up to the school. And yeah, eventually at one point it crosses into badass territory, like when she's driving the van, hijacks the van and takes off, but it's still, those movies on the whole are still eerie and creepy, whereas these 3 movies, or at least with the first 2, there's so many characters and so much light pollution and so much plot going on that there's no time for any potential moment of tension to breathe before we're moving on to the next thing. It's like very, ADHD in a way. It's like we can't pause for 2 seconds. We got to move on. And in the third one, I was surprised at the amount of restraint they showed in really slowing down the story, but they're not focusing on the right things. It's that this Corey guy. I'm like, look, if you want to do an anthology film or something that's not even Halloween related and tell this guy's story of being ostracized and see his path and how being ostracized and bullied turns him into a monster, then cool, that could be a great original movie. But why is it the focus of Halloween ends?
Well, again, like I said to you last night, it could have been the focal point, but it would have been so much better if he wasn't actually a killer and Michael Myers was killing people and they were blaming this kid for that. But instead, they were too lazy and they just had this kid be
right. And it's like,
yeah.
I don't understand the impetus. It's like it clearly reeked of somebody at some point decided we're going to turn this into 3 movies. They then decided that the second and the third would only be made if the first one was successful and that they would be shot back to back, like at the same time. And then they decided for whatever reason, and this is still pre-COVID at the time, that they would change their mind to do it one at a time. And it's like, okay, well then they made Halloween Kills, COVID happens, they release it. It still makes money, some of it, but it's like there's really no reason to come back and do a third movie if you have really no story.
Wait a minute, though. I got to stop you because I did hear you say, you said 1, 2, and H2O. So, because to me, that's the definitive trilogy. And a lot of people have their own things, and that's fine. A lot of people say 1, 2, and 4. I'm totally fine with that because I think 4 is kind of a great movie. Well, great horror, great.
Yeah, it's entertaining. Yeah.
So let's these movies, these new 3 ones, they all suck to me. I kind of hate all 3 of them. What is your definitive trilogy? Is it 1, 2, and H2O like myself?
Yes, 1, 2, yes. H2O.
It makes the most sense. It just
4, 5, 6 were fun to watch as a kid, and 4 is still kind of fun. But even with those movies, as high as the body count gets and how gory and more carnage it gets, they still put tension and suspense leading up to the kills.
Well, so 5 is where they really turned him into Jason Voorhees, where he's grabbing anything he can to kill. Like he has like right. He kill somebody with like a fucking like a fork, like a
pitchfork. But they're still adding, but they're still putting in some tension and suspense there. Whereas there's none in kills or ends. And
well, like, 18 kills and ends it's goofy, gratuitous. Like it's all like the first one didn't know what it wanted to do. It tried to be funny, and then everyone's like, fucking stop being funny. You're not a comedy. So then he's like, okay, well, just kill everybody. Fuck you guys. And then this third one, oh God, I don't even know how to dissect this third one. I mean, I would need like 15 hours to dissect.
Well, it's weird because again, on the one hand, I think it's a plus that they slow the story down. They don't emphasize the body count and the gore, but they add character development, which is good. But all of it is focusing on this Corey guy, which is a completely separate issue. Whereas, like you said, why are Laurie and Allison still living in Haddonfield? Why has Laurie not established any continued friendship with Frank Hawkins?
But you say slow the story down, but what story is left?
Well, that's what I mean. Like the story, if you call it that for this movie of the kid finding Michael and that kind of thing, it's really a slower burn type thing. But this seems like the movie where you're dealing with the whole community and the aftermath of the carnage in the first 2, but they don't really touch bases on that at all, except for the lady who, by the way, should not have survived being killed in Halloween.
Yeah. Oh my God, with the light bulbs in the throat. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, there's no way.
I think that was a direct response to the fans who were like, this movie is so mean-spirited and awful, because that scene was very gratuitous. So right. I think they're like, you know what? Let's just have her be alive so it doesn't seem so bad. And which again is just ridiculous and stupid, but that has to be a result of that.
Yeah, and so it's just like we're doing this again, and I'm like, I don't get, I don't understand what the thinking was with we're gonna have a transference. Why? It's like what like, and it's not even at first a full transference because he exits he goes out and he's still hanging out and he's does very conscientious things, like he kills the doctor and the nurse because they screwed his girlfriend out of the job promotion that she needed and he was harassing her. Well, then he goes to kill, the DJ because they made fun of them. Oh, I'm going to burn down the DJ's radio tower just because, which he doesn't really need to do. and oh, I guess I'll go kill Lori because she's holding her back. And it's like, well, where are you? And this whole possessive thing of I can't have her, no one can. Like, where the fuck is this coming from? It's like, well, why is this movie? And then the fact that Allison had this ex-boyfriend who looks like 30 years older than her.
Did you ever? Okay, so when this movie started, because it kind of kicked off really fast, where like Lori was like, "Hey, you're the guy that like people think's crazy. I think you might like my granddaughter, right?"
Yeah.
Did you and just hear me out on this? Did you find that a bit strange? Because I'd heard that people said that this movie, or I think it was Jamie Lee Curtis that said this movie is gonna blow you away. It's very different, and it might piss people off. So for how quickly that relationship escalated before Corey became like a murderer, I was wondering to myself, and tell me if you thought this for 1 second, because if you didn't, then I just must be crazy. But I thought that the movie was going to be where Lori and her granddaughter were killing people, because she lures this guy in. She's like, "Hey, my granddaughter," and then all of a sudden, the granddaughter, I keep forgetting her name, Allison takes him to like a punk rock bar, and she gets drunk, and she gets him drunk, and she's like rocking out like a punk rock. And I'm like, oh wait, maybe they're going this direction where like Lori and her granddaughter have become like lunatics, and they're just gonna like lure this guy in. And like, did you ever think that for 1 second? Because I was thinking that during those
No,
moments.
I thought the reason she said you're the guy they call psycho, you like, because I think she sympathized with Corey, and like Allison says, I know like she kind of relates to what he's been through, being ostracized, everybody thinking she's weird, and that's kind of where I thought she was going with that. I didn't think that it would get like, even when Lori calls 911 to report a suicide, I knew it was bullshit. So
Well, I'm
even
talking
Lori,
way before that, though.
right,
Like
I know that, but I mean,
beginning of the movie.
even with that, you could tell that I knew. My point being, not only would she never commit suicide, she's not going to go on a murderous rampage.
Yeah, but for a
the
second
antithesis of
there,
everything.
for a couple of seconds, I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting," because it just seems so random that like they just like, "Hey, you might like my daughter. Like, you were accused of killing someone. You might like my daughter." I don't know. There was just a moment there where I was like, "Ooh, are they going there?"
I was also wondering in the opening scene when he has a little argument with the kid and he's hiding up. I'm like, is Michael going to show up? Because that's where my mind was going. I'm like, how is Michael going to factor into this? Like, what's going to happen? And then when he kicks the kid down, I thought, oh, this reminds me of Hereditary, where the brother gets the girl killed, and you feel so bad for him. And it's like this super awkward moment where the tension is just thick as fog. Like, oh God, what's going to happen?
Well,
And
by the way, the kid that he kicked down the stairwell was a fucking dickhead.
Yeah, he was, for sure. And there's no way, even with him kicking the door open like that this short little kid would be flung over that high railing. That's not happening. Maybe crash through the railing if he kicked him hard enough, but there's no way he's gonna fall over. And yeah, whatever. But I thought, oh, they're going in this direction, and I'm thinking, wonder what they use the weird blue font, which is a little awkward. But where are they going with this? And then it just kind of, like, I checked my watch when Michael first shows up. I'm like, my God, we're 45 minutes into this movie and he hasn't shown up yet,
And then when he does, you don't even know if it's real. It's I fucking hate this movie. I fucking hate this movie.
And why has Michael been in the sewer for 4 years doing nothing? It's like what?
Yeah, at least do a throwback to the original, where like there's like when Corey goes down there, you see some like dog corpses where like he eats dogs, because that's a thing from the original movie. Like he ate a dog. It's like, okay.
Well, in Halloween Kills, they also didn't really rationalize why, after escaping the mob and killing Karen, why he disappears. Because in the original movie, at the very end of the original movie, after Loomis sees that he's escaped the backyard, he goes back to his house, his original house. And that's even before Halloween Kills came along with their little flashbacks to show what happened. But he went back to his house. Whereas in this movie, in Kills, why did he leave, and why is he leaving the house to go hang out in the sewer for 4 years? Like, what's the idea behind this?
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't think, and like you said, that ending was so atrociously bad for as far as the showdown goes. It's like, no, And it's funny because I've heard Jamie Lee even kind of diss H2O. She's like, yeah, we tried it. It didn't work. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's so much better than these.
No, you know what? She's lying when she says that because that was her idea and it worked
Right.
and people liked it.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't even want to come back for that other one with Busta Rhymes. Like she did not want to come back for that.
Yeah, I'm surprised that she did because I didn't think she was under contract to do it. I mean, she
Money,
said during
money.
featurettes, and she's like, "Oh well, I figure it's time to pass the torch so they can continue the saga and end Laurie's story." And I'm thinking, okay, I get that they are gonna retcon Michael's death, but why exactly? Or I mean, it'd be one thing. I would give them a pass if they wanted to do a transference thing to justify her still being, or to allow her to still have killed the real Michael Myers. But why did you bring her back just to murder her? It's like you didn't need to do that, but okay.
It doesn't matter, Kat, because never underestimate the power and the beauty of what do you call it? Oh God. Hang on, it's coming to me. Is it brain cannon or is it
Head canon?
Head canon. Head canon. You can do whatever you want with these stories, and there's so many of these goddamn things. You can fucking basically make a Tetris puzzle out of this shit. And you and I seem to be in the exact same boat, which I love. That's why I love having you on. Like, it's
I'll
one.
admit that I was not a fan of the fact that Halloween 2 and Halloween H2O made her the sister. I thought that was really dumb.
Yeah, but you know what? Once you do that, though, you can't go back. And look what happened when they tried to do that. It's like, now you're like, well, why the fuck does he even go back to Haddonfield? Why the fuck does he care about Laurie Strode?
But
It
he
does
didn't really
make more sense.
Well, like you said, he doesn't really seek out Laurie. Like in 2018, the bus crashes. He starts.
Well, that's my point.
But no, the bus crashes, and as they point out in Halloween Kills, he was on his way back to his house. But then the psychiatrist and Frank Hawkins kidnap him, take him in the car. The car ends up. He breaks free from the car and kills the psychiatrist, and he's chasing this one, and he's in the woods, and he comes out at the house, and that's why he's at Laurie's new house and ends up there. Whereas in Kills, he never once even thinks about Laurie or tries to seek her out. He's just once again going back to his house.
My point exactly. So why
the fuck exactly
give a shit about her in this new movie? Like,
right. Whereas in Halloween Ends, he has no real reason to do that. It's only because of Corey, I guess, that that happens. So, but the thing which made the original so good is that she wasn't the sister simply because she went up to the door. It's like it was not some predetermined thing.
Well,
like in the original, because in the original, Dr. Loomis gives that whole great speech about, I saw him sitting in a room, looking at the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient. And they never explain why he wants to break out and go back to his house and decorate it. He just does.
But in retrospect, it does work, though, Kat, because if you have to make a sequel, you have to give a reason why. And the fact that you do have so many scenes in the original the original Halloween movie where he's staring at her, and I get it. She knocked on the door. And it's like, okay, that's fine for the first movie, but if you have to expand on something, it's like, why was he looking at her over the laundry, in the backyard and stuff? He was stalking her. And it's like, we have to make a second movie. We have to give it a purpose. We have to give it.
He was stalking Tommy and her specifically because they were both up at the house talking about it.
I know, and I get that, and that works perfect for the first movie. But if you're gonna make a sequel, I don't discredit the sequel for going that direction. Is what I'm saying, because it kind of makes sense for a sequel, because you have to add something to the sequel, and if you really think about it, it made H2O work so much better, like
another thing that kind of, because I mean, granted, at the end of the original, it's implied he went back to his house because you hear the mask breathing increasing, and they end on his house.
Best scene in the movie, by the way, is the original Halloween, when it's just those shots of those empty areas.
Right, and then in Halloween 2, it picks up with him fleeing the house, getting a knife, and I like the restraint also in Halloween 2. He walks into the kitchen and takes the knife, but he doesn't bother killing the people because there's no reason to. Unlike in Halloween, 2018 and Halloween Kills, where of course he's got to kill everybody he finds, Like when he's walking down the street and these trick-or-treaters are in the way, so he walks down this driveway, picks up a hammer in the garage and goes inside and kills this lady, and it's like, why did you do that? Okay. But it just kind of, it just
Yeah, the 2018 and the kills, it's just like he's walking to every door and just killing people for no reason. And that
it's
wasn't.
like Danny McBride and David Gordon Green listened to that line from the sheriff in the original movie where Brackett's like,
Yes.
oh come on, you know what Haddonfield is? This is, you know, children, families. You're telling me they'll all be lined up for the slaughter, and he's like, they might be. It's like, so that's what they did with this movie and with these two movies. But
So I want,
yeah.
Kat, what I want to do now, I want to throw you on the spot here. I said
Yeah.
I do want to throw you on the spot. What are your rankings of these movies? I mean,
Ooh.
I've never seen the Rob Zombie ones, so I can't really rank them
Oh, of
based.
all the films. Okay, so excluding Season of the Witch, because that was not a Michael Myers film.
Right. Okay, that's
That
fine.
means, so we have 7, and we have 8, we have 7. Let's see, so there's 7,
I told
8,
you I was gonna
9,
throw you on the spot.
12 films. All right, so in 12th place, Halloween Ends. I guess it's like,
It's terrible.
yeah, low body count, better, more character development, all that kind of shit. But it's not Laurie. It's not. The ending is so cheap. It's just no. 11th place, Halloween Kills. Yeah, because at least it's very trying to be a Halloween movie. 10th place, the Halloween Resurrection, the Busta Rhymes one. 9th place, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. 8th place, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers.
Keep going.
7th place, Halloween the sequel that Rob Zombie did, H2, which I admit the cinematography was good, and there were some really decent scenes of real tension and suspense and terror for a little bit until it goes off the rails. The 6th would be Halloween 2007, the Rob Zombie remake, the first one. 5th place is Halloween 2018. 4th place is Halloween 4. 3rd is Halloween 2. 2nd, H2O, and then Halloween.
Oh, I like. Wow, you have H2O fucking high. I love it. I love it. I'm the exact same. I was so happy because I'm like, I don't have to do all those over again. Excluding the Rob Zombie ones, which I have not seen. I'm with you on every one of those, except I do like Halloween 2 slightly more than H2O. But other than that, we have, dude, Kat, we have the exact same order. That is so great. I love that. I love that. Okay, guys, thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully you guys are having fun watching good horror movies this month. Keep it up, and there's lots more coming on Cinema Gulp this month. We have much more to come, and you can find Kat on the Fantasmagorium Show YouTube channel. Look for that in the link below. Kat, is there anything you guys have coming up that you want to talk about?
Yes, Scotty and I got the rest of our Tarantino series, and we're going to follow that up with a Batman series and a Star Trek original cast movie series. So,
Ooh.
and we got, of course, all of our catalog of Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns there to watch. So, yeah.
I highly recommend the Tarantino saga that they are doing. It's amazing. All right, everybody, thanks so much. We drink your cinema.